Mohammed Al-Qasim back from the front line and taking us into the city's east, the first testing ground of what really happens after IS.
Eastern Mosul has come back to life, despite the ongoing battle in the west of the city between the so-called Islamic State fighters and Iraqi government forces. It is a welcome beginning of normality for residents, but it's still far from what once was Iraq's second largest city. Less than 6 months after the Iraqi forces pushed IS fighters out of this part of the city, huge juggernauts transporting rebuilding materials arrive in the city daily. Municipal workers and builders are working day and night, trying to restore electricity and pave the streets. In the shadow of destruction, buildings riddled with bullets, others flattened to the ground. Construction workers are twisting steel and mixing concrete in an attempt to help the city rise again. The old market is bustling with people, and the shops full of goods, and the sidewalks filled with street vendors and shoppers looking for a bargain. Abu Hakam says he reopened his shop soon after IS, or Daesh as it's known in the Middle East, left.
It is much better. Under Daesh, the situation was bad, but now, thank God, it's better. There are more work opportunities available, and many people who left are coming back.
But one quick look shows that few people are actually carrying bags full of goods.
We're living on handouts, what people give us. We don't pay rent. The owner lets me and my family live here for free. There is security, but life is hard, and it's expensive. It's a hard life.
Despite promises by officials, progress is slow to make itself felt.
They're liars. They have no credibility. They act just in front of a camera. No food supplies. I've been here for 3 months, and I did not receive anything from them.
Under a huge billboard of Kadhim al-Sahir, the Arab world's most famous singer, with the words, "Love arrived," residents of East Mosul are complaining about their representatives. There is no love lost with government. Many are calling for old times to return.
Saddam was a dictator and they brought us democracy. We don't want democracy. Take us back to dictatorship. Take us back to the oppression of Saddam. We don't want democracy.
Abu Ali is uncertain about the future. Many around him are unhappy at the lack of electricity, the shortage of water, the scarcity of jobs.
We don't want you, we won't elect you, we don't like you, everyone hates you, no one cares for the government. I swear, if Daesh didn't oppress them, they wouldn't want to live under you. Enough.
Another sensitive issue is the presence among the local population of collaborators, sleeper cells, as well as ex-IS fighters.
It's good, it's getting better, 100% with cooperation with the citizens. It's continuing to get better, God willing.
And just on the other side of the Tigris River, in West Mosul, the fighting is fierce. Iraqi government forces backed by a US-led coalition say they will soon be victorious there as well. But for the Iraqi government, the real battle is just beginning. And it's all about winning the hearts and minds of its own people. Mohammed Al-Qasim, I-24 News, Mosul, Iraq.
And senior Middle East correspondent Mohammed Al-Qasim here with me. Mohammed, those two incredible reports you brought us last night and tonight show on one hand the fight in the West, on one hand the attempts at rebuilding in the East, and so important what you underline here, that it's what happens after that will determine this country's future.
Absolutely, and I'm of the belief that even with the defeat of ISIS at this point, after seeing what I saw in Iraq, I don't think that spells the end of violence in Iraq. I think there are still a lot to do by the central Iraqi government and the other factions, the other groups that are involved in the conflict in Iraq. What we saw in the eastern part of Mosul, even though there is a sign of normal life back in the city, but there are still some resentments by the residents there toward the governments if the government doesn't act and act very quickly, and not only the Iraqi central government but also the international community. What we've seen there, it's an environment that breeds recruitments for the so-called Islamic State organization or any other extremist group. This is the environment, and this is a tool for this extremist group to use to recruit new fighters.
The same thing we saw after Iraq, when the U.S. withdrew from Iraq.
Absolutely.
If we're looking at who's actually leading this rebuilding effort, I've heard often from the U.S.-led coalition that this is not us, this is the Iraqi government. Are they equipped to do that?
No. And they are overwhelmed. That's what we heard also from Iraqi officials. The Iraqi government has so many different places that in desperate need of rebuilding. It's not only Mosul. Fallujah, if you remember. It was a hub for Daesh or IS, and IS was driven out of it. But the government hasn't even been able to rebuild that area. The government says that we are limited by our resources and our financial means, and we're trying our best, but it's not an easy task, and that's why it's a must for the international community and NGOs to take part in this rebuilding of Iraq.
Not